Well, good morning. This is this is us speaking from here, and we're in for what? Our ninth, 10th, 11th.
Oh,
We
I'm
could.
not counting. I haven't. I don't
I just
really
happened
have
to
any
look at the
sense of
list. There's
it.
quite a few up there.
Are there?
Yep,
That's nice.
we're getting there.
I hope people are enjoying them. They seem to be, from what we're hearing.
We haven't had the million mark yet on the internet, but we're doing all right. The, okay, so we have an interesting week. I think I want to talk about the death of our chicken, the white hen. I know a lot of people love chickens. We're not the only ones who have got attached to them. But I've never myself had an experience like this in 12 or 15 years of chicken owning. And Maria, I think, was really exceptional in how she dealt with it. And I just thought it was fascinating that we should talk about it. Do you want to start, young lady? Since
Well, young lady, oh, look at you! Don't you flirt with me? um, you know, chickens. I mean, I eat chicken. I eat chicken. I've never killed a chicken before. But I one of the reasons we named white hen was because we didn't want to get attached to them because all our chickens were dying pretty quickly. They would only live a few years and then something would eat them, or they'd get egg bound or something. And so we decided, when we got these two chicks, we named them white hen and brown hen because they were white and brown. Brown hen died a few years ago, and it didn't work, I guess. Just because we named them white hen and brown hen, it didn't work about not getting attached to them. I mean, even when they were chicks, I didn't have anything to do with them. I didn't, interact with them hardly at all, only to feed them. I didn't pick them up or hold them or anything like that. And so here's white hen. She's 11 years old, and suddenly I have this, I'm getting attached to her in a way that I've never gotten attached to a chicken. And we had something, there was something there. There was something special.
let me just provide a little background before. So those who may not have been following this exciting drama, the white hen disappeared in the middle of the winter, very, very cold, and snow and everything. And she was gone for 5 days, and we just assumed she was dead, that she'd wandered off or gotten confused or went off to die, any number of things, or some predator had finally gotten in and eaten her. And then all of a sudden she appeared outside of Maria's studio, hobbling around. The other hens, as happens with chickens, turned on her and would not let her in the roost and started attacking her. So Maria and I talked about it. It was just really Maria's idea. And we ended up putting up a little hospice chicken room. we knew she looked very sick.
And she was old. She's 11
She was
years
very
old.
old. So we thought, okay, so she's going to die any moment. She just looked like hell. And she'd been wandering around somewhere in the bitter cold. So thus began the beginning of what I call the hospice chicken room, where Maria set up this wonderful place for her in a stall. And we both agreed, we talked about it. What we wanted to give her was a good ending. We wanted her to be comfortable, and we expected her to die momentarily. And so let her be comfortable. She was happy, stayed in there. She looked awful. And like 3 months, what is it, 2 or 3 months later,
She's still alive.
she's still alive and moving around. And Maria and she developed this relationship, but I just never saw anything like that. Maybe other people have had it. I've never had it, and I don't think Maria quite had that either.
Not with a chicken, no.
I would come in and they'd be talking to each other, and they were really talking to each other. They weren't just making noises. The white hen, who is not very social, really attached to her right before our eyes, was happy to see her, let her feed her out of her hands. And so that's where we picked up and brought it to this week where we had to kill her. So I think, Maria, you may want to pick that up again. I thought background's important. That's all.
Yeah, no, of course. You're the storyteller.
Right.
I'm just, blathering on.
No, you're doing fine.
Well, then so it was something special, and I didn't actually realize how attached to her I think I was until after.
And how attached she was to you.
Yeah, until after she was gone, because I kind of miss her. I miss a chicken. It sounds silly to me, but I do. I miss seeing her in the barn and going to see her. But it came to the point where she had stopped. She wasn't eating as much as she had been, and she broke her beak, and so I had to give her soft food, and then I saw that she had mites, and I thought, okay, we're at the point where first it's the broken beak and you're feeding her soft food, right? You're putting water in her food and feeding her soft food. Then now it's the mites, and so we could treat her for the mites. I cleaned out her stall. I burned all the hay because I didn't want the mites getting into the other chickens. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, after this, so now it's the mites, and her tail feathers were obviously being eaten. So we cure her of that, and then what? Then there's going to be something else, because she's 11 years old and she's dying. She's weak. I mean, the mites came after her, I'm sure, because she was already weak. And then now the flies are coming out. They always have poop on their butt, and once the flies find that poop, they're going to start laying eggs, and then she's going to get maggots. I know, and it's like, and then what? And then what?
It's going to be horrible to see.
It's time for her to go. It's just time for her to go. And I was outside, and John was inside. I was outside burning the hay, and John was inside, and I called him up, and I said, I think it's time, and it's time for White Hen, and you were in the same place as me. You were surprised I was in the same place as you, I think.
I know. We came. Well, I think, a little more background. We have this philosophy about animals since we've lived with them. And I see myself as a steward. I think Maria does too. Maria gets closer to them, talks to them, is with them more. And I grew up in the Border Collie era where the sheep didn't really like me. And so I never got as close to them as she gets. The donkeys, I'm fine with them. I love them. But we also agree that the one rule we have, we're not among the people who will spend a lot of money on surgeries and expose our animals to living beyond their natural way. And this one got a good long ride. She really got taken care of very, very well. But it was a very beautiful thing for me to see. It was really an eye-opener for me to see things I didn't even think were possible in relationships between people and animals. They just got very close to each other, and they communicated with each other. And the chickens are not notorious for hopping in your hand and eating. I know some of them do it, but we were never that close to them. And it was a very beautiful thing to see. I also saw this tremendous evolution in Maria, who, when some animal was sick, I used to get the rifle and kill him, shoot him. That's how we used to deal with it. And she would go away. She didn't want to see it. In this case, she went to me and she said, I was about to call her and say, we need to put her down. And you called me to say we need to put her down. And I said, okay, well, you want to go somewhere and I'll do it. And I realized I didn't need to shoot him. We can do it with breaking the neck, which is the fastest way. And you said, no, I want to be part of it. I want to do it, which she's not ever said before. And so she held her, and I smacked her neck, and then she flopped around as they do. And then you took her off into the woods and you left her for the animals out there to
right.
eat. So I think we ended up in a very different place for both of us than we had been before. I mean, I love what I was seeing. I got very attached to it. I love to go out there, and Maria would come in and buck, 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 and then buck, 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 and they go on.
You did really love it. And the day before she died, she was out. She came outside and walked around, which was only the second time she had done that since she was in the barn. I opened the barn door. She was right there, and she hopped out, and she was walking around outside. The other chickens were attacking her, and we kept them away from her. And then when the other chickens came, at one point, she came and hid between our chairs, and under my chair. And
that was amazing. The chicken went after
her. You were like, she's coming over to you for protection.
Tears. And she ran in. I never saw a chicken do that. And she sat between her legs and protect me, which she did.
Yeah, and she wouldn't have done that when she was older. I mean, if we hadn't made that connection, I think, because she didn't come near me a lot. She would only come if I called her for food. But she really kept her distance.
Did you think you learned something from this?
I'm sure I learned something from it. What did I learn? I learned how to kill a chicken.
Well, I can volunteer a thought about that.
I don't want to think about it.
The farm is a great teacher, because there's a great schism between city people and country people when it comes to animals. If you're on a farm, you're going to see a lot of death and a lot of life. And you can't do what they do in New York. You have a $7,000 surgeries to keep her alive. You go out. You have to go under immediate. You go broke. So all the things we see are going to die here in our lifetimes, unless I beat them to it. and the and that teaches us a lot about the limits of life and the limits of love and the connections that I did not think it was really possible for a chicken to attach to a person in quite the way you talk. The same thing with the donkeys. You actually talk to them, and they talk to you, and they trust you, and you can point to them and say, "Get out of here! I'm giving out grain," and they turn around and leave. When I did that, they'd like try to run me over. So I think it was a very beautiful experience. I think it deepened our feelings about animals, but also affirmed, I think, our ideas about them. We were not hesitant to kill her.
No, we weren't. And you know what? Of course, for the life and death thing, definitely, I've become much more accepting, acclimated to the idea of life and death. You know, just being of the same thing. They're not opposite ends. They're of the same thing. When I thought about the hen, when I thought about that we needed to put her down, the thought that came into my head is I'm opening the door for her to move on to the next, whatever happens next. And it's not, you know, it was just really that kind of thing, opening a door, you know. Sure, you know, the suffering that goes along with it. I don't know what she experienced, the pain or suffering she experienced going along with that. But you know, it's something that we all do. So
well, you know, also our circumstances are such. You know, we love the farm, and the farm is the basis where we're living, but it's not all we do. You know, you have your art, which is very, very important to you. I have my writing and my blog, were very important to me, and my pictures. And so we have that. We didn't sit up all night worrying about her.
No, and I don't want to do that.
We didn't spend any money.
I mean, it's, you know, chickens. You know, everyone I talk to about this who lives around here, I said, "Oh, we killed a chicken. This is how we did it." Is that? And I was curious to see how other people killed chickens, and they were like, you know, everybody had their own little idea about doing it, but breaking their neck, they said, was the quickest and easiest way to do it, and the most, you know, painless way for them to die, and. It's not a big deal to kill a chicken.
And then life goes on the next morning, and we went up here weeping all night. But I think those boundaries are very important when it comes to animals. I think a lot of people lose their way, thinking that love is keeping an animal alive for 10 years after they would die, and spending a fortune. I know a woman who spent $17,000 on her cat's urinal troubles, and she ended up going broke. She almost lost her house for that. To me, that's inappropriate. That's not ethical, and so I would not want to do that. But here we were able to do something for an animal that was very, very beautiful. We gave her what we promised. We gave her a month or two of life. She wanted to live. Clearly, she was not ready to go. And when we saw the mites, we knew that was the end because we didn't want to see her get eaten alive by bugs. So I think that's one of the things I learned about it. I think boundaries are very, very important, but I needed to open myself up a little more to the beauty of what was happening, which is the relationship between, you know, people and animals can be very difficult and painful, or it can be very beautiful. And a woman who's been mourning her dog for 3 years and can't let go of it, and you know that's a mental health issue, really. But we don't let it go that far. But I can also go deeper than I've been going. So I think
that was the thing that happened with you, is that you wouldn't normally have done so. You would have just shot the chicken, and that would have been it. And this time, and you saw something different. You know, it opened you up to something. It opened me up to something different too. I never expected that with a chicken.
Well, you are naturally, you are intuitively kinder than I am.
I still when kindness is one thing, but the attachment that was between us was different. That was different, you know, because we really did interact with each other. And
I was also shocked that you were actually saying things to each other, and not in words.
I don't know what you were saying,
but I know what you were saying. You were talking about this experience of you caring for her, and it was
I think it was more of a reassuring thing that she, you know, she knew who was coming in.
She would talk to you the minute you came in. You would go back and forth. You were communicating. I don't know. I can't say I know what you were saying.
Right.
But obviously it was about
and it was communication of comfort, right, for sure.
So I think, you know, you taught me also that it's possible to be very loving and very empathetic without going over the edge.
Right. It doesn't mean that, you know, it has to be one or the other.
Because you're a hard ass about that. I mean, nothing gets in the way of your work. I mean, you know, I would not want to have a heart attack while you were making something.
Well,
because I'll get to you. I'll be back in a few hours.
That's right. You better not.
Yeah. I'll check in with you later. But I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think we're both very committed to what we're doing. And that gives you some perspective.
Yeah, perspective is important.
Yeah, and that's what so often lacking in this. Oh my God, we're 14 minutes already.
All right, time to go.
Well, we can go as long as we want. I mean, there's
I know, but
people
you
see
know,
nobody's complaining.
we want to keep it, you know.
The most
within a
complaining we ever
certain-
got was that I have a little lip snacker. One guy was hysterical about that.
Yeah,
But I don't hear that anymore.
We haven't heard a complaint
No,
about that yet.
probably by just holding their noses. Oh, well, I'll have to put up with this
But
lip
now it's
snacker.
going to be, all you people, you just go on and on forever.
Well, we'll see. Anyway, so that's a very nice thing to talk about, and I'm glad we talked about it. And it made me admire you all the more, if that was even possible. Oh, it's enough goo. All right, we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Next
everyone.
Friday. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the chicken story.